As you might have learned in a previous course, a web page is made up of 3 different layers that work together to deliver an experience to the user. There's a content layer, a presentation layer, and a behavior layer. While HTML provides the content layer and the behavior layer is normally handled by JavaScript for real-time user interaction, CSS is what handles the presentation layer of a web page. It's what makes our HTML look pretty. You see, back in the early days of the web, before CSS was introduced, developers would have to embed presentational tags and attributes in the HTML to control the design of a web page. And many of those tags were proprietary tags that only worked for certain browsers, usually for the browser vendors that created them. So providing support and maintaining a consistent look for every browser was nearly impossible. Remember, HTML was never intended to be a presentational language, so it made it difficult and impractical to create websites where the content of each HTML page was separate from the presentation. Imagine having to manually edit tens or hundreds of HTML files to make a single styling change. So there had to be a more efficient way of doing this, right? Well, because of all the problems that came with this sort of ad hoc way of styling web pages, CSS was finally introduced in HTML4 to help solve many of these problems. With CSS, web authors finally had a way to express their designs without having to add new HTML tags. And by separating the content from the presentation, CSS made the development and maintenance of websites more efficient because the styles written in a single CSS file could be shared across multiple web pages. Now, over the years, CSS has also improved the accessibility of web content because it's allowed us to adapt our content to various devices, screen sizes, and resolutions. And what's exciting is that CSS continues to evolve. As you'll soon learn, today's CSS features are becoming closer to tools we'd normally use in a graphics editor like Photoshop. That's because CSS 3, the latest evolution of CSS, has introduced many in-browser design features like rounded corners, box shadows, gradients, animations, as well as new layout features like Flexbox. So us designers and developers now have more power and flexibility when designing and building for the web. It's a great time to be learning CSS.